Hey guys, thanks for coming out. And yeah, my name is Andrey. I'm from Russia. I'm a product designer and front-end developer at Wildbit. This is my Twitter handle. And this talk will be about the Slack combined with this guy. And this guy is, it's like GitHub, but not that cool, but still, yeah, like Beanstalk. We launched Beanstalk in 2008. Then I left the company to move to Vienna. And recently I rejoined the company. But right now I'm working not on Beanstalk because we're working on something different. And I'm working also on a different project. We have free. We have Postmark. It's a transactional email. I talked on last React.js meetup. I talked about the new status page I built for this one. And also we have this deploy bot, the third project. So it's just free project. So kind of smallish company. And it's also remote. And this is the reason why I started building this Slack bot. Because working on the status page was kind of involved communication between backend developer or like different developers and me. And we were sharing code on Slack. And like because we host our code on Beanstalk, the most easy way was to just copy the URL from the Beanstalk browser, which is awesome, and paste it into the Beanstalk so the other guy could click on it, go to it, because you can highlight the line. Same as in GitHub, right? And like read the code and say something meaningful in Slack chat. But the thing is, Slack does this unfurling of your URLs. That's the word, believe me. It's an API, unfurl. It's like URL, unfurl. I don't know how do you pronounce it, but the thing is, it looks like this when you start sharing your code, which is like far from helpful. And my goal was like, what if we could do something with this, and so it will look like this after that. So each time I will paste an URL, it will paste like a meaningful code snippet into the conversation, so you can like go back in history and read it and refer to it and stuff like that. So yeah, it was just an idea. I was burdened my work, but recently we went to a team retreat. Then we have a few free time. So we started, me and my colleague started to hacking. He introduced me to some cool stuff like, yeah, so let's build the bot, he said. And he told me there are cool things like BotKit, which is basically JavaScript SDK for building bots, which is made by Howdy.ie, which is also a bot kind of company. They sell a product based on bot, which is ridiculous, but I mean, this is a VC world, so yeah, this stuff sells. But anyway, they released with BotKit, which is kind of really nice SDK. And then my colleague told me, there is this Beeboop thing, which also sounds ridiculously, but if you check it out, it's kind of cool. I will show you later. And you can run your bot like for free. They have some pricing in mind, but right now it's free, so you can play around and like host it and deploy it quite easily. I will show you in a moment. And then you have to create a GitHub account. If you don't have one, I suppose everybody has one. So you just put your bot's code on public repository. This one is also public. It's open source. And then you have to have a Slack account, and in this case, Beanstalk. But since it's open source, everybody is welcome to do some PR to support GitHub or I don't know what else? How it's called? Bitbucket stuff. So any other hosting platforms. And yeah, a little bit of time. And now I will show you how this thing works. So yeah, this is this Beeboop thing. This is the Slack channel we set up for testing purposes. And right now, if I go where and paste some URL to some, this is an existing repository with some code in it. We just put it where for testing purposes. And if I paste this link, nothing good will come out. Or if I also do some / command, this is a spoiler, but it's also not here. So first of all, I have to connect my Slack with my bot, which is already running, because it's connected to this GitHub repository. Is it big enough? Okay, cool. So basically, what Beeboop does, it connects your repository with bot. You have this nice bot YAML file where you describe your bot configuration with some security stuff, what bot can access or not access. And then you put the master, like push your code to master, and it will deploy and run it in a Docker container. So right now, this is the latest version, which says like we have these scopes, we have this description and stuff. And we have these teams connected to this bot. So right now, I just want to add a new team. And to do that, I have this add to Slack button, which is actually the same button you can see on, you can share this button because it's shareable. So if I click this button, it will be the same from GitHub repository, so you can embed it, which is also cool. So when I click it, it will ask me which team I would like to set it up for. I will choose this setup team. The Derek is a guy. We hacked this thing together. few questions you have to answer. Then I will just authorize it. Yeah, this is the cool thing about this Beeboop, because you can, for Beanstalk, there is no such thing like public accounts or public repositories on Beanstalk, so everything is hidden. This is the reason for this login, huge login things on in Slack channel, because Slack doesn't know how to fetch something meaningful. Oops, sorry. So to fetch something through API, we had to use some authentication token, but we didn't want to host it ourselves. So like the first iteration we built, we just hard-coded some tokens in our start shell script, and we ran it, and it worked. But like the next thing was like, okay, how do we share this bot with other teams? And we found out that you can just add some configuration to your bot YAML file. It looks like this. Let me enter presentation mode. Which is pretty much cool, because you just say like you have this PS username. For Beanstalk username, you add some info. You even can define type, and based on type, it will this one will display this input type password, and it will not be shown anywhere. And just adding this information to this YAML file will add this UI to any bot process. So every team will be asked of this username and password, or auth token. Now I just have to find one. Yeah, I can just use this dev mode. Come on. So I will take this one. Take this one. This is also cool because Beeboop allows you to run some development configurations. You just hard code your stuff and you can remove it after that when you're ready. So now I'm saying like launch the bot. And if I go over and paste the previous URL once again, it won't work, by the way. because I have to invite this guy here. But once he's invited, it will display the contents of the file, which is exactly what we wanted, which is cool. Even better, if I go to, I'm not sure if I can log in to this account. Let me see if I go through. Yeah, if I highlight this line, which happens a lot to me, and want to share just this one, it will display just the context around this line. So I can see, you can basically you can drive meaningful conversations from this point of view, which is cool. But one thing we found out, it won't work with direct conversations because these are private. So this is the reason we had to. So if I paste it here, nothing will happen because the bot isn't here, because you can't invite bot to your private one-on-ones. So this is the reason we developed this / command, which is commonly used. And I will show a little bit of code how to do both. But this is basically the same code. So I reuse the code that fetches all this stuff. And the syntax is just like this. So it works exactly the same way here. The only difference, you have to add this / code in private conversation. But if you're using channels, you don't even have to bother. So you just invite this Beanstalk bot. He will listen to you, to the conversation, and when he sees the link to the Beanstalk account, he will try to fetch the data for you. Yeah, so the cool thing about this Beeboop is what you can see the logs of your deployments. So if something's not working, you can see here some bad requests and stuff. You can manage with teams and remove this from team. So basically, it just simplifies the process of deploying your bot to production, because this was also a question we didn't want to do ourselves. But when using BotKit, you can use any hosting you want, because it's just a Node.js platform. So you're just spinning up a server, and that's it. And this is what Beeboop does for us. And this is how it works. So we have this. You can read all this code on GitHub. It's open source. And we have this two files called bot and server. Let's just take a look at bot. We use ES6 here, which works perfectly with Node 6. I think they have 99% ES6 support. The only thing that doesn't work is modules. So I had to rewrite it from, in the first iteration, I used Babel and was importing modules using modern import-export syntax. But I couldn't make it work with Babel on this Docker container. I don't know why. So I just rewrote it into normal Node.js require syntax for now, CommonJS. And the cool thing is, you just instantiate this controller. You have this Beeboop wrapper, all this coming from NPM. And then you have this resource management, so you can store tokens and read tokens, and you can remove. So we remove resources when you disconnect your team and stuff. And this is based on a worker, so on single instance of this bot. So these are types of hearing, like ambient, direct mention, direct message mention. So we wanted to make sure it goes through. But I think in this case it's just ambient. And then you have a callback in which you can reply, and we reply with get file contents. We fetch the contents and then we send them back, which is a JSON because of this nice formatting. But you can also do some like simple stuff and a little bit more complex stuff. What doesn't work is syntax highlighting for these snippets. It's just general problem of Slack. They have support for syntax highlighting if you upload the whole file, but it wasn't an option because I wanted to share like this context around the line. So we decided just to opt in for this one. And then we have this help stuff, and I don't know what this one is. Unrecognized request. Yeah. Self-explanatory. Yeah, and for this slash command, the only thing we had to add is this express server, which I kind of like because every root in an Express.js express server will act as your slash command. So the one thing we had to add is approot/.code, which is a command, and then like post, and we parse the incoming request. And we work with it, and we do the same thing, get file context out of this text, which is the message itself, this URL. So we just parse it and send it back. And we like the whole thing's the logic separated into these utils, which is also following the functional way. So basically, each function is a mapping of input to output. I really like this. I also like, yeah, I totally dig this functional approach right now in JavaScript. So yeah, I think it's awesome because it makes writing tests so easy. So I could test each function separately in this test suite, and just to check like if so different types of URLs. Until it was all green. So I keep writing code until it's green, which is cool because you can do some stuff that Slack adds to your URLs when you do something unusual or usual. I don't know, like always shit here, which isn't like obvious because you find it out and then you start writing the code or working with like Slack API. Yeah, this is basically it's. Let me get back to slides. Yeah, this is like the simplest bot written using BotKit, and this is the same one written with Beeboop. So you see the difference is quite subtle because you don't have this. You still have this controller, but additionally you instantiate with Beeboop instance, and it adds you some event handling for resources and all this stuff. So the API is pretty much similar as for BotKit, so it's easy to learn. They have like stuff for simple conversations. So you write a bot for ordering pizza that asks you what kind of size of your pizza, or I don't know what should be inside. So you can drive a conversation and you program around this conversation. So it's also in all this simple way. So just check out the BotKit on GitHub. This is for slash command, so it's basically the Express server spinning up for this root. So each root becomes your slash command, which is also pretty much straightforward. Little bit of error handling, empty requests, and all this stuff. But it's like the whole thing is probably 50 lines of code. Yeah, and I think I'm actually done. So if you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Like about bots in general, like so the output of a bot is posted into the channel, and can another bot react on that output? Like, can there be like a recursive bot?
Of course, you can.
Okay, so if you would have like in your bot, if you would have like a line that matches your PS URL, would the same bot then respond on it and then like cascade?
What do you mean the same bot? I just said like if you add two bots. I don't think it's possible to add two bots to the channel.
Okay.
Like two same bots. So if you try to add two same bots, it will just because it recognizes the same bot, you already have a connection.
Yeah, but like your bot is like every time you post something with a specific URL,
Yeah.
then he responds, right?
Yeah.
So and if your code also contains a line with that URL, will the same bot respond to that?
It might. I didn't test. I'm not sure because it like the output of the bot. I don't think he will treat it as an input because it's. I should check the SDK because this the ambient thing, it hears for like ambient everything. I don't think it will hear for himself. So treat like his answer as a input. So in this case, I think it won't work like recursive.
Otherwise, it would be fun.
It could be fun, yeah, for bots.
Well, you could always add an echo bot.
Yeah.
I mean, I see maybe one dangerous point referring to you. In case you have this code as part of the URL you post, you could trigger an infinite loop maybe that the same bot takes this URL.
I think they have some kind of pretty smart pattern matching. So because the slash command, the command itself should be the first thing and then the argument. So I also don't think it will happen because of this condition. So if it will be inside the string, it will be just part of the input. So it will not be a trigger for a command itself, if it makes sense. Because slash command, like slash thing, then white space, like everything what goes before white space is a slash command. So if it's somewhere in the string inside, it's not a command anymore. So it won't trigger it. Yeah.
How is the connection with Slack built? You have a web socket that is connected to Slack, or you keep polling for to see if there's no information you post, or?
Yeah, this is done by this basically the BotKit SDK. So they use WebSockets underneath. Yeah. So I didn't check the code like a lot. I know they use WebSockets for communicating. They also have like your Slack ID. So you have when you create the bot the first time, you will create. But Slack will generate some secrets, some keys you will be using to identify your bot basically. And then he uses like this identification keys to say this is this bot, this is that bot. So.
Okay, but in principle it's generic, so you could hook it to any service that supports.
Yeah, right. Because this Beeboop thing, for example, supports Facebook bots as well. So you can write one code and use it on 2 platforms. And if you opt in for something like Hubot, which is also I suppose everybody knows Hubot. It's a campfire thing, but they also have like this SDK that being used by many bot platforms. There is also Hubot Slack adapter, so you can hook up a Hubot to the Slack or Campfire or whatever. So like BotKit is just a different type of SDK, so it's tailored for Slack, I guess. But Facebook uses this like the same or similar model to communicate. So yeah, it's reusable. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for watching this talk. Down below, you can find our channel ViennaJS, where you can find a lot of different videos about front-end and back-end JavaScript. And feel free to subscribe.